The purpose of this presentation is to give you a little bit of information about Mexico, its language, culture and heritage, and how this information can be useful to teachers who have students from Mexico in their classrooms. In Mexico, the official language is Spanish, and that is the language that most people think of when they think of people from Mexico. But there are also widely used indigenous languages. There are 65 different indigenous languages spoken in Mexico, with more than 100,000 people speaking an indigenous language. This is important to keep in mind because when families come to the United States from Mexico, they may be assumed to know and speak Spanish as their first language, but this may not always be the case. Mexican culture is predominantly focused on the idea of family and relationships, traditions, and religion. Family is one of the most important elements in Mexican culture, with the good for the family and the needs of the family outweighing individual wants and needs. Households are typically large with many generations that might live in the same household. And they traditionally have a patriarchal family structure with defined roles for men and women, fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters. In Mexico, unfortunately, they've had a long history of political corruption, from bribes to extortion to payoffs of government officials. And this affects the people because they have a large distrust of government. The history of Mexico is a long and complicated one. The early civilizations rose and fell during the 15th century when Spaniards appeared in Mexico. They exploited and enslaved the people, and they were treated unfairly with extreme cruelty until Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821. The geography of Mexico is also something that many people may not be aware of. Originally, Mexico territory inhabited much of what we now think of as the United States. Religion in Mexico is also a very important part of their culture. The culture revolves around religious beliefs, traditions, and Roman Catholicism is the most widely practiced religion, with 82.7% of the population practicing. One part of the culture is rites of passage for children, especially girls who have a celebration of their 15th birthday, the quinceañera. It is a large celebration with dancing, food, families and friends, and a church service. The education system in Mexico has improved over the past years, but it is still an area that can be improved. Some improvements recently have been the requirement of children ages 6 to 18 to be in school, and since 2004, preschool has been mandatory for all children. But many schools are underfunded. Many schools have teachers who only hold high school degrees. And even though there are 2 million university students enrolled in courses every year, less than 1/8 of the population actually has a college degree. So what does all of this information mean for teachers who have students who are from Mexico. The biggest recommendation I have is to do research into the culture and history of the family specifically in the classroom. Because of the wide range of rural to urban places in Mexico, students may have varying experience with schools. Some may have been enrolled in schools, some may not have been. It's important to know the level of education of the student coming in. It's also important to know the level of English the student has coming into the classroom, as they might know some English from living in Mexico. Another big takeaway or recommendation is to connect all learning to students' background, and if they don't have background knowledge, to build that with hands-on activities, visuals, and organizers that the students can connect to. Another recommendation would be to use cognates that are similar in English and Spanish, because English and Spanish have a lot of similarities. They have a lot of cognates. These can be used to help support the students' learning in the classroom. The last recommendation is to encourage the parents and the students to keep speaking their home language, keep learning in their home language, reading in their home language if that is possible, because the more the student is proficient in their home language, the more that this knowledge and skill can be transferred into the classroom in the use and learning of English. And these are my resources for the video, the music, the images, and the information that I shared. Thank you for watching. I hope this information is helpful to you.